Well, it's good to get Bruce Dickinson joining us here for not talking about Iron Maiden, but talking about something outside Iron Maiden, the Mandrake Project. And wow, you've you've really taken us on a journey with this, Bruce.
I'm very glad you used that word, actually, because it is. I mean, it's old school 50, you want to dedicate 58 minutes of your life that you'll never get back to listening to this record, like from start to finish, it's 58 minutes well worth it because it is a journey and it's kind of an emotional journey. You start off in one bit going, yeah, and at the end of it, you're kind of like, wow, at the end of Sonata. So I think that's quite rare in an album these days, to get that kind of bandwidth of emotion on a record. It's easy to fall into the trap of doing kind of like cookie cutter type music, which is comfortable and everything, but you can step outside your boundaries and still stay authentic, then that's what you end up with is something like the Mandrake Project.
Well, it's going to work on so many layers too. And, at this point, the only video we've seen so far, so I've listened to the entire album.
Yeah.
So, it's not a business class ride in a nice, cozy plane, is it? It's a roller
No,
coaster.
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Looking
With
at
just,
Afterglow of Ragnarok, I mean,
yeah,
that basically just slams us in the face and visually as well as just the audio that goes with that.
that's why I wanted it to be track number one to to uh to make people sit up and go, wow, what's this? Basically. There was a variety of tracks we could have picked. I mean, we could have picked Many Doors to Hell, for example, the second track, which is fairly conventional, kind of like catchy, almost like Scorpions-y type, riff. But to me, that would give the wrong impression of the record. I want people to go, wow, what's the record? If this track sounds like Ragnarok, what the hell is the rest of it going to sound like?
Yeah.
And the answer is you'll have no idea. You have no idea what it sounds like, and if you put out something like Many Doors to Hell, a lot of people would go, oh yeah, I know what the rest of it's going to sound like. Not interested. Um, but Ragnarok, I think, has got people's attention. So the second track we're going to put out is Rain on the Graves,
Mm-hmm.
with a video. And we've done a video for Rain on the Graves. It's sensational. Honestly, it's going to be way better than the first video as well. So it's going to be, good fun. It's another story.
Yeah. Well, that first
But
video tells us to be continued. So you say
yeah,
it's another story, but is there sort of a continuing thread that goes through all of the songs
yeah,
and all the videos?
there's a little bit of a thread that goes through the video. I mean, the songs um it's not a concept album. Although as in a concept album that tells a literal story with a narrator and things like that. Absolutely not. Um, it back in 2014, it was going to be that, but that all changed 7 years down the line. Because I'd been locked up for 3 years with COVID and had a bit more perspective on things and looked at the songs that we had back in 2014 and thought, well, you know what? It doesn't need to be a concept album. I'd written this, call it a comic book, call it a graphic novel, whatever you want to call it, but basically a 12 edition comic series, kind of adult comics, kind of like Watchmen style, not like superhero stuff. So the Mandrake Project covers this multitude of sins. Um, and I thought, well, I don't need the record to be a concept album. I've already got a 12 episode comic story. So, leave that bit of it to the comic. And the title to the album and the title to the comic was actually the very last thing that we did. We'd finished the album, in effect. I mean, it was ready to mix. We'd done great rough mixes of it. And so we had the order and everything, and I was just thinking, what the hell am I going to call this? Um, so I had a sheet of paper with stupid things written on it, with all crazy ideas for, album titles, most of them very embarrassing. And then I thought, well, what do I want? What do I want um, people to think when they hear an album title? What do you? Surely an album title has got to make you curious about what is this? And I thought there's something project. There's something project. I mean, that sounds, it's easy to make it sound pompous. I like the Mandrake. Let me do Google Mandrake and let's have a look at what I like Mandrakes. Yeah, because they cover the bases of the occult. But the Mandrake Project sounds like some weird government classified project that they call the Mandrake Project. And I thought that's exactly what the comic is, except it's not a classified government project, but it is a kind of a clandestine project. So that works for the comic, and actually it works for the album too, because people go, what is this? So so then what I did was visually, um, we with the comic company, we were talking about a medallion. Um, and on the one side, you would have this kind of like almost like Art Deco, like Metropolis era type logo. And on the other side, you'd have this, this illustration that they found of a mandrake root imprisoning humanity. Um, so I thought, well, there's the cover of a single, and there's the cover of an album. So that's how the whole thing morphed into what is now, the cover. I don't know what they sent you. I don't know whether they sent you a physical thing.
Well, I've heard a stream of the entire album.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But when you see the physical product, like the double vinyl, ah, it's off the chart. I mean, thing of beauty, honestly. It's just so beautifully put together.
Yeah.
And ditto the CD box and everything and all the bits that go in it. So the concept is as much a visual concept for the comic and the album share that visual concept, but story wise, they're separate.
Yeah, we've been working with Roy Z again on this
Yeah.
record, and you and he go back a long way now, back into the 90s.
30, yeah, nearly 30 years. Yeah. In fact, 24, 94. Yeah, 30 years. Yeah, yeah. So we just musically we just riff off each other, it just we get together and we do interesting stuff. I find him, you know, profoundly inspired by music. And not just the inspiration, but he's also pretty good at it. I mean, he's a pretty amazing guitar player. Um, and you know, composer and everything else. So I'm a bit more off the wall. So I write stuff, very primitive stuff on guitar, and then give it to him and say, you can play this much better. Um, although on this record, he made me play some guitar on the record. So you know, I'm like, what are you doing? You've left. You've left my guitar, my demo guitar on the record. He said, no, it's the final mix. That's going to be your guitar on the record. I said, but I am not a guitarist. He said, no, you are now.
Well, as a guitarist, you're a very good pilot.
Yeah, exactly. No, honestly, I was like, wow. The next thing is, I mean, we're going to do like Resurrection Men live. I'm like, oh Jesus, do I? Maybe I'm going to end up having to play the 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 Dick Dale surf guitar thing that I played at the beginning of it. That's my piece on the record. I mean, I could probably get out of it by doing the bongos because I also put the bongos on the record too. So if I'm playing bongos, I can't possibly be playing guitar. So maybe
Yeah, that'll
that's
get
my
you out of it.
maybe I get out of jail free card. You
Yeah.
know.
How will that solo tour look? Will you do this album as a complete piece of work, or will you sort of be
No,
juggling it
no,
around?
no. I mean, it's been God knows how many years since I actually went out on the road. I mean, it's 14 years since Tyranny of Souls,
It's really
and
late '90s before you, since you were doing
yeah, I mean,
solo
yeah.
shows.
So it's like it's a long time. Um, so given that, and given the fact that you've got 7 albums to pick from now in terms of the set list, um, I think it would be cruel and unusual punishment uh, to uh, to have people listen to a brand new album start to finish. Uh, we're going to do Tears of the Dragon, we're going to do Chemical Wedding, we're going to do Accident of Birth, and all this stuff. I'm going to limit it probably to the things I did with Roy, because that's stuff that we share with Roy and Dave Moreno, the drummer, and Mysteria did keyboards on all my records. So you've got to you've got to have a little limit that goes some way. Go, okay, where's our starting point? And effectively, it's going to be from Balls to Picasso uh, uh, forward. I'm probably not going to put any skunk work stuff, not because I hate it, but just because we got so many other great songs. I'm sure this won't be the last tour that we do together, so we got plenty of opportunity to go and do stuff. There'll probably be 3 or 4 off the new record for sure.
Yeah, because I don't think Roy's was on Skunk Works, was he?
No, 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 he wasn't. No, no, no. Roy wasn't on Songwriting. There was a completely different band and
Yeah.
a completely different feel to everything. But there's some cracking songs on there, and obviously Yannick was on Tattooed Millionaire. But again, I'm not going to do anything off Tattooed Millionaire. Not this tour. I mean, we might dig stuff up if for future tours and things like that. But for now, I want to concentrate on the heavy stuff, and I think people will want to hear stuff off Chemical Wedding because that's the kind of a bit of a that was my little bit of a groundbreaking record in the 90s.
We're getting you in Australia later this year. Is there any chance we'll also get the solo tour for Down Under as well?
I would absolutely love to come to Australia and do a run with my solo band. That would be fantastic. Um, and I have to say, I mean, we're quite we're not carting 30 tons of equipment around with us and scenery and all the rest of it. So we are fairly agile in that respect. But obviously this year is completely absolutely chock a block full. Um, but once the album comes out, once the dust has settled on the Maiden tour, I would talk to promoters. I think that's the way you do things normally. But on the personal level, I would absolutely love that.
Because this maiden tour is almost a makeup because we were going to have you down here when COVID happened.
Yeah. No, well, it is, and no, it is absolutely that. The COVID thing like nailed so many plans and projects. But at the same time, it also enabled me to go and do the writing and meet the people that I met, and you know, I think had the album come out, had we made the album 2014, 15, 16, and 17, 18, maybe released it in 18 or 19, like 5 years ago, I don't think the album would be as good as it is now.
Hmm.
Even though some of the songs date back 25 years. I mean, the last song, Sonata, is 25 years old.
Wow.
You know?
Well, if you started work on the album 10 years ago, even,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
dates it.
exactly.
But
Yeah. Play the long game,
I find it fascinating to listen to a Bruce Dickinson project where it's all your songs from beginning to end. Because, when we listen to a Maiden album, everybody's doing a bit all over the place, isn't it? It's different songwriters all compiled together to make the album. This
Yeah.
we get, what a Bruce flow would be like, I guess.
Yeah, that's fairly that's true. You get the kind of the distillation of your musical personality. Um, in a solo record. The same thing, with when Adrian did Smith Kotzen, you can see where he's coming from as a guitar player and with his musical taste, and so mine obviously tend towards the dramatic.
Yeah. Well, we heard so few examples of you just by yourself, just as you as a songwriter, not collaborating with anyone else. There are
Yeah.
only 5 songs of Maiden in that entire time.
Uh, you're probably
If
right.
Eternity Should Fall, Bring Your Daughter to the
Yeah,
Slaughter,
yeah.
um, Flash
The
of the
Power
Blade, and
Slave,
Power Slave, and
Revelations,
Revelations.
Sun and Steel,
Is that
and
just
Flash of
you,
the.
or is that a collaboration? I think it's credited
No,
as
that's
collaboration.
uh, Sun and Steel might be just me actually, or
Mm.
might be Adrian was on that a little bit. But Sun and Steel, Flash of the Blade, yeah, and then Empire of the Clouds, yeah. So I made up for it for that because that was 18 minutes long.
Yeah, that always works.
Yeah.
There's the comic book that comes out, the video that comes out. Is there talk of doing a movie or a TV
Oh no,
series or
no,
something
no,
around that?
that's. I was talking to a couple of script writers in Hollywood. We were having Zoom calls with each other because there was nothing else to do, and we were swapping stories. And one of the writers was a guy called Kurt Sutter, who wrote Sons of Anarchy and The Shield, and is a proper A-lister writer. He's an amazing writer, actually. And I ran the story of the Mandrake Project, the comic, past him and said, "What do you think?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "That's a great story." I said, "Well, so what should I write it down and send it to Netflix?" He went, "No, it'll go in the bin like everything else." He said, "Just do a comic."
Hmm.
He said, "Do a comic." He said, "Because," he said, "Look, man," he said, "paper is cheap, and movies are expensive. So you'll spend your whole life trying to get your project made, and it'll probably never get made. But with a comic, you can do it, and you can have it made, and it can be out there, and it is basically a storyboard to a series or a movie.
Hmm.
You're just doing it. So if people want to turn that into something, um, they can.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, your story is going to be out there and told." I said, "Well, that makes a lot of sense." Having said that, producing a 34-page comic every 3 months for 3 years is quite a bit of work.
Sure is.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely amazed by how great your voice is sounding on this record as well.
Well, it's
Um,
very nice of you to say that. Thank you very much.
well,
It's
I
not.
mean, we're both getting on it in our years, aren't we, Bruce?
Yeah, no, certainly.
Good to
Yeah,
know that the
absolutely.
parts are still working.
Well, certain parts are still working. I don't know about all of them, but yeah, the important bits.
We won't go into the other parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was the scare there, 7 or 8 years ago with the
Yeah,
cancer.
cancer. Yeah,
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 absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No, I had a couple of had a couple of big lumps that were growing where they shouldn't be. But I mean, they um, lots of radiation and lots of chemo, and they disappeared. Quite where they disappeared to, I asked my oncologist. I said, hey, given that I had a golf ball in my tongue and a large strawberry in my lymph node, where are they now? Because nothing got cut out, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and he said, well, he said, your body just they're just dead, they're dead cells, so your body just gets rid of it, liver breaks it down, out it goes. I went, okay, good little body, excellent. But it was interesting because I having a golf ball sized lump in the base of your tongue, which was the size of the cancer, was 3.5 centimeters. The tumor there. I thought, well, my tongue must therefore have changed shape
Hmm.
because like a pint of Guinness, you wait too long, and the head starts to collapse because the bubbles have been taken out from underneath it. And I visualized my tongue as having the same thing. You know, these lumps been taken out or is gotten rid of, but does it go back to the same shape it was before? And this is really way, way, way down. But of course, you use that bit of your tongue for speech and all kinds of things. So it was interesting when I started singing, that all the high notes were sounded better, because there was no obstruction there anymore. But some of the lower notes were kind of sounding a bit unstable, slightly. It's a weird way to describe it. And that's just my thinking was, okay, so the brain basically needs to reprogram your the way you talk or the way you sing to learn this new shape of your tongue, and that'll just take a little bit of a while. It'll do it, you know. But you don't know how it does it because you don't know how you learned to speak in the first place, because you don't remember because you were a kid. You just copied things, you know. Yeah, so it's interesting little psychology of it, in a way, you know.
Yeah, but I guess, you know, the scare for somebody who uses their voice as a living is that, you know, if this changes my voice, it, you know, changes my career.
Yeah. Although I wasn't scared of that, because there's nothing. If it does, if that did happen, there's nothing you can do about it to change that. So what you have to do is change the way you do things. Because all these years later, you know, it's only taken me 60 something years to realize that what I actually do in the world is tell stories.
Hmm.
And I just happen to do it well. I've written books and I've done spoken word and I've done that. And this is storytelling. And what I do when I sing is I tell stories, and the stories I tell are the songs.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that I've got this voice that I use in a particular way because I can and everything. Um, but if that's changed, would I still not have any stories to tell? No, but you tell the stories in a slightly different way.
Hmm.
You know, you might not be a, you know, heavy metal singer with Iron Maiden, but if you're a storyteller, you can still tell stories. You
Yeah.
know, you look at some of the great storytelling singer songwriters, and none of them had conventionally wonderful operatic voices. Bob Dylan springs to mind.
Hmm.
Leonard Cohen, another one. You know, awesome. I mean, even although he did have a fabulous style, and Johnny Cash,
Hmm.
another guy like that. You know, just amazing storytellers with their voice. So not everything has to be like, you know, like Pavarotti with razor blades. You know, I mean, it's like you know, like that. But that happens to be a style that I can still kind of pull off, at my advanced age.
Well, looking forward to the storytelling when you get down to Australia with Maiden. This will be the
Oh, it's
seventh
going to be great.
Maiden tour.
Oh, oh, it's going to be great. Yeah, we're going to have I'm having such a blast on the Maiden tour. It's amazing, honestly. It's fun, fun,
No
beginning
Run
to
to
end.
the Hills on this tour.
No, I mean we've done that one to death, you know. So we're 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 doing a bit of a deep dive into Somewhere in Time. I have to say, that you know going out and playing Alexander the Great. You know,
Yeah.
I mean nobody's missing Run to the Hills this year. Put it that way.
Well, I've said it many, many times over the years. So, you know, we forgive you for that one. If we're going to get some rarities in place, albeit great stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, Bruce, great to talk to you, and see you in Australia later in the year.
absolutely.